You ever seen the movie Spaceballs, where they have the early copy of the movie and they're fast forwarding? Prepare to fast forward. There's your warning, because after that win, this one might be a little obnoxious. That's right. Bear down, Bears fans. It's time for another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast, Bears Banter, powered by Second City Gridiron. Bill Zimmerman with you, and we are rolling this week after a Chicago Bears victory, an epic Chicago Bears victory, a Chicago Bears victory where in the past, they would have just tucked their tails and lost that one, but not this Bears team. This is a fun Bears team. This is a fighting Bears team. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it with Patrick Mannelly, yes, of 670 The Score, the longtime Chicago Bears long snapper. He's going to be by here in just a little bit. And the one thing we always do with Patrick Mannelly, we talk special teams, and I will be honest, this was set up prior to the Bengals game, so I did not know special teams was going to be such a hot topic this week, but it's certainly a great week to have Patrick Mannelly on and get an idea of what on earth is going on with those Chicago Bears special teams. But let's start with the positives, and let's start with the fact that this Chicago Bears team won this game. Should it have come down to that? No, of course not. And that's why we keep dipping our toe in the water with this team. We are proceeding with caution with this team. Last week, my first question to Mark Silverman was, are the Bears good? And we can still sit here a week later and go, are the Bears good? Because they are definitely a scrappy team. They fight to the last second. They are winning football games. They are ugly at times. And that's the question is it sustainable? Like right now, and it's a totally different style, because this team I'm about to reference was defense and running the football like Chicago Bears teams have been many times in the past. But the Dick Duran 13-3 2001 Bears team, it's starting to get that kind of vibe. Starting to get the Mike Brown pick sixes, the James Allen Hail Mary, the wild crap that kept happening in 2001, where the Bears just kept pulling out win after win after win. Team goes 13-3. We're entering the playoffs, and NFL pundits everywhere going, are the Bears good? And had Jim Miller not getting hurt, they might have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles, because I think it was 14-13 when Miller got hurt. But regardless, they lost that one because they lost to a superior quarterback. But now we're winning wild, crazy games here that we're seeing the Bears win. And we're seeing them do it with a quarterback who's significantly better than Jim Miller. If you're listening, Jim, sorry, pal, I love you, but yeah, you're not Caleb Williams. Now, this is exciting. It's fun. They're 5-3. They still have some winnable games coming up here. I think they absolutely should beat the New York Giants and move to 6-3. And I think at worst, they should be able to split with Minnesota and Pittsburgh in those two games. They might win them both. They could be at 8-3, but let's say they're at 7-4. That's when they get to the teeth of that schedule where things really get hard. We've been talking about it a lot, starting the day after Thanksgiving with that Philadelphia Eagles game. That's where we're going to learn about the Bears. Bears could collapse there with the Eagles and the Packers and the 49ers and all the Detroit Lions, all these teams they still have to play. Or they can show us something and say, actually, no, we've been figuring things out and figuring out a way to win football games, and now we're ready to win football games. So they've got a lot to figure out here this month, because at the end of this month, things are going to get serious for this Chicago Bears team. So let's break this game down a little bit. Let's break it down, talk about all the players involved that were critical here. But let's start with Ben Johnson, because again, and I feel like a broken record, but I don't know how I can't just keep repeating this stuff over and over again. What he's building here it's like nothing we've ever seen. And I get Matt Nagy with Club Dub in 2018. It was fun and everything, but it feels different this time. It really does. It feels like a culture shift. It feels like things have never been like this in the last at least 15 years, because we saw how quickly 2018 fell apart with a little adversity. And while the Bears are winning football games, they're facing adversity every week because of how these games are playing out. How many times? I mean, look, they should never have blown a 14-point lead with under 3 minutes to go. Never, ever, ever should that have happened. But they did. And they didn't just sit there and be like, oh, well, they won the damn football game. That has been this team's difference over and over again, that they are finding ways to win these close games. This is something they've never been able to do in the past. We talked about the Eberflus and all the 99 percentile, win probabilities that he's blown. And here's Ben Johnson blowing a 99% win probability only to turn around and win the game anyway. So this is what we're seeing. We are seeing a totally different kind of winning culture being built here. And that's not just exciting for this year. That's potentially exciting moving forward because these players are learning how to deal with adversity within the body of the game. And if you start doing that, when you start facing adversity in the season, which of course they were starting off 0-2 and blowing a game like they did to Minnesota and getting the doors blown off them like they did against Detroit. They're getting this adversity here and they're overcoming it because they believe in their head coach. And that is definitely something that hasn't been the case. Maybe it was the case in 2018, but it hasn't been the case since about 2020. And it certainly wasn't the case from, 2014 to 2017, 2013 to 2017 either. Obviously, the team believed in Lovey. They had a lot of success with Lovey. I think that success has been really propped up to more than it actually was, if we're being honest. Like Lovie Smith, when you look at it and you look at the full body work, was like a 9-7 coach and went to a Super Bowl. That's kind of what Lovie Smith is. But when you talk about this Bears team since 1991, a 9-7 coach is a miracle because every other coach has had massive failure here. So we're seeing something getting built with Ben Johnson. And you're seeing this team believe in him and believe in each other. And that goes such a long way. Now, let's talk about Caleb Williams here, because I do think the criticism of Caleb here, it's getting to be a little extreme. And I understand that not everything is perfect. I get that. But I also feel like people are watching Caleb Williams and looking for mistakes rather than just watching it and going, all right, well, he did 4 positive things in a row. And then, yes, he made a mistake 2 out of the next 3 plays. And then he did 5 positive things in a row. And then he made a mistake. Then he did 2 positive things in a row. And then he made 2 mistakes in a row. Then he made 7 positive things in a row. And instead of just looking at that and going, it's not consistent, but it's a lot more good than it is bad. We seem to be focused on, well, he's frantic here and he held onto the ball too long here and he took a bad sack here. And look, like Drake May is great, but Drake May has taken some bad sacks. We're not talking about that. We're talking about because the Patriots are good and Drake May's got a great QBR and an EPA per play and everything. We're just going to rah Drake May. We're not doing that with Caleb Williams. We're not talking about now. Jaden Daniels got hurt. It sucks for Washington. Their season got flushed down the toilet. But prior to that injury, did anyone watch? If you just watch Jaden Daniels year 2 in a bubble, you had no idea about what Jaden Daniels did in year 1, right? You just looked at Jaden Daniels year 2. You said, this is the LSU quarterback in year 2. What do you think of him? You're like, oh, well, he's got some work to do. It's not terrible, but it's not good. What he do in the first? Oh, he went to the NFC Championship. Oh, well, that's surprising because I swear everyone's watching Jaden Daniels tape this year as, well, he went to the NFC Championship game. He's great. He's just not quite as good this year. Terry McLaurin's been hurt. They've had some issues. Like, just give him the pass, right? Like CJ Stroud this year, you're starting to see some dents in terms of how people look at him because he had such a great rookie year, such an awful year too, to the fact that everyone goes, well, it had to have been Bobby Slowick's fault. Bobby Slowick's a 1-year wonder. They fire Bobby Slowick. They knew how to bring offensive coordinator. Texans offense again looks bad. Now I get it. They've had some injuries. They have no, there's no Joe Mixon. They've got no running game. The offensive line is suspect. I get all the issues facing CJ Stroud, but this is the second year in a row where he has looked pretty meh. So now the Texans are going to have to come to this offseason and say, are we going to obviously you're going to pick up the 5th-year option, but are we going to give him that massive $280 million extension? Or are we just going to pick up the 5th-year option and say, you know what, CJ, we need to see what things look like in year 4, because years 2 and years 3 are not the quarterback that we want to pay, $60 million a year to, $65 million a year to. So we got to wait and see what's going on here. So yes, you need to see the consistency, but you need to see it year over year as well. And Drake May's been great. I'm not here knocking Drake May and trying to come up with a reason why Caleb Williams is playing better than Drake May. He is not right now. Doesn't mean he won't be by the end of the season or next year or whatever. But right now, Drake May is playing great. But Caleb Williams this year 100% played better than Jaden Daniels. I know Jaden Daniels might miss the rest of the season or a big chunk of the season, but the body of work for September and October, and I know Jaden got hurt twice, which is honestly part of the evaluation of Jaden Daniels, was the idea that this guy was a slim build. He took a lot of hits, and was that going to hold up? And this year we're already seeing it. He got hurt last year too. He was banged up when he played the Bears. And now this year we're seeing 3 separate injuries in half a season. That's concerning for the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels. So but that aside, the actual play on the field, and maybe Jaden was hurting and maybe that was part of the issue, but Caleb Williams played better than Jaden Daniels. Now, Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, that's close. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes. Sometimes Bo Nix looks great. Sometimes Bo Nix doesn't look great. But you can say the same thing about Caleb Williams. Michael Penix, I know he had a really good game this past week, but Michael Penix has not looked the part. J.J. McCarthy, I understand he beat the Bears, but overall, you cannot argue that J.J. McCarthy, unless you're Thor Nystrom, is better than Caleb Williams. So we're sitting here at what's considered a really promising rookie class of quarterbacks from 2024 and saying Caleb Williams might be playing the second or third best out of that group, which when you rewind a year ago at the end of that season, everyone's like, oh, well, look at Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Michael Penix looked good in December. Jaden Daniels is great, but Drake May is great. Everyone's like, oh, well, Caleb Williams with the number 1 pick might be the worst quarterback in this draft. We're not saying that anymore, are we? So we're seeing the steady improvement from Caleb Williams. We're seeing the pressure to sack rate being very good. We're seeing the sack percentage be very good. We're seeing the yards per attempt. He's like 11th or 12th in the league. He was way down at like 30th, 31st last year. We're seeing the EPA per play much better over the last, few weeks. I think Nate Tice put it out since week 2, how the Bears offensive EPA per play, which is a lot of Caleb Williams, is in a much better place. And then we're seeing a game, and I get the Cincinnati Bengals defense is atrocious. It's historically bad. It's probably worse than the Dallas Cowboys defense. But the bottom line here is that Caleb Williams did what he needed to do. And he did it with a little pizzazz. And thank you, Ben Johnson. Caleb Williams, 2 receptions in the same game, 2 receptions, 1 for a touchdown. You got to love the creativity. And they're trick plays, but they're not even necessarily, it's not like it's just a whole different way of looking at how to execute an offense when you see what Ben Johnson is doing and how he's doing it on a week-to-week basis. And for me, where I am with Caleb Williams is confidence is building. And this is a guy who after week 1 said, I don't like what I'm seeing. And week 2, it was a little better, but it still wasn't great. And then we feel a little better after the Cowboys game. We see a little cleaner operation. And then things lull here again against the Saints. We saw some struggles again. Obviously, the clutch game against the Raiders, but the Ravens game was obviously not good. And now we're seeing it uptick again. And yes, it's a bad defense, but Caleb Williams doing the things to do. And I'll tell you this, and then we'll get to Monangai and a couple other things. We got to talk about special teams. The throw to Colston Loveland is, you cannot make a better throw. The game-winning throw, you cannot make a better throw. If there was a way to grade a throw, if this was like diving or gymnastics and you got the judges, right? And you're going to score, that was a perfect 10 on a fairly high difficulty throw. Caleb drops back, does not hesitate. Because here's the thing. If Caleb Williams throws that ball a tick earlier, Colston Loveland isn't finding that soft spot where he is. And the ball might be getting deflected or intercepted. If he throws it a tick later, I'm not talking about a second later. I am talking about a tick, a split second later. Those 4 guys, yes, 4 guys converging on him would have been there. And again, the play would have failed. Caleb saw it, knew exactly when he needed to throw it, exactly when, through 4 guys umbrellaed around Colston Loveland, exactly where to hit him. Now, Colston Loveland did a great job bouncing off the tacklers and sprinting towards the goal line. And I'll tell you what, I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this. If Colston Loveland goes down at like the 20, intentionally, the Bears have, 20, 25 seconds to get on the ball, spike the clock, and win the game with a field goal. Colston Loveland rumbles an extra 15 yards and gets tackled at the 5. The Bears may lose that game. They've got no timeouts. That's an extra 15 yards for all the offensive linemen to run to. So it's an extra couple seconds that that Colston Loveland takes off the clock. Then it's an extra couple seconds for the offensive line to get up there for Caleb Williams to spike the football to win it with a field goal. Like, it would have been close. They may have spiked the ball with 2-3 seconds to stop the clock, but it was going to be really close. Caleb was going to have to be on his P's and Q's to make sure he got the offense lined up to stop the clock. But regardless, Loveland decides to rumble. He rumbles all the way to the end zone. Bears win that one. That's the one thing that we didn't talk about. If Loveland gets tackled at the 5 and the Bears can't spike the ball, we're talking about a complete epic failure in terms of how the Bears blew that game. But again, we put that aside. Loveland did score. That's all that matters here. Chicago Bears win the football game. Let's talk about Kyle Mannelly, because we do need to, again, talk about how the Bengals defense is the worst run defense in the league. It's worse than the Dallas Cowboys. It's the worst in the league. Coming into that game, I think opponents were averaging 155 yards on the ground. So, Kyle Mannelly doing the same isn't that much of a surprise. But when you talk about a 7th-round rookie and talk about 26 carries and how much the offense relied on him, it was great to see. And I will say this, Kyle Mannelly, and again, what he had done prior to this game was all positive, right? He's running forward. He's running strong, powerful. The legs are churning. Everything you want to see from an in-between the tackles back. What I was most impressed with Mannelly was how he ran at the 2nd and 3rd levels of that defense, that he was running to space, that he was using angles. He was not north and south. And I'm not saying he was juking and dipsy doing and all the things that you saw, Barry Sanders do or Jahmyr Gibbs do or anything like that. But he was running smart. He was running where he knew he could get, instead of, plowing into a guy. He did it at times. He plowed into a guy and get an extra 3-4 yards at times. But at times he sits there and goes, all right, I could plow into this guy and gain a couple extra yards, or I could cut to the left and run at an angle, and I think I get 7 or 8 yards. And he did. And he took where the yardage was. He wasn't sitting there getting overly greedy, but he had vision, because this is mostly a guy where we didn't see what he could do at the 2nd and 3rd levels through the first few games of the season. We saw a guy running in between the tackles for the most part, running hard and breaking some tackles, dragging some tacklers, and getting, 4.5 yards a pop, which was great to see from a 7th-round pick. But we saw a different kind of Mannelly, where you sit there and go, this guy could be something. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be a $1,300 a year running back. He might be, but he certainly feels like a guy who's going to be able to develop. If we go into, again, the Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery example that Ben Johnson had in Detroit, he could develop into the David Montgomery back here. He could be the guy. He never fumbles. He's really, and we talked about it, at the first couple weeks of the season, about how Kyle Mannelly's college tape showed that he was a really good pass blocker, and he was atrocious the first couple weeks. We're like, he's got to get that cleaned up. He's got to figure things out. Seems like he has a lot. His pass blocking has been much better. And when you can pass block in Ben Johnson's offense, you can be out there for a lot more snaps. So with this New York Giants game coming up, you have to look at it and go, do we really need to push DeAndre Swift back? Should we just let Swift take his time, miss the Giants game, and give him a few weeks off on that groin and see if he can get it to heal before he comes back potentially against a Minnesota, Pittsburgh, and then, like I said, the teeth of that schedule? But The way this offensive line is blocking, especially in the run game, Darnell Wright has become an elite tackle. I haven't looked at tape from all the other left and right tackles to know exactly where he is this year, but I'd be hard-pressed to imagine he's not a top 10 tackle in this league, the way he's playing right now. Dan Rochar has done wonders with Darnell Wright. That is a guy who's going to be getting a big-time extension, $25, $26, $27 million a year, headed Darnell Wright's way for how he's played. The interior blocking really well in the run game, and Theo Benedict blocking really well in the run game. And you got to tip your cap to Theo Benedict. And I get his issues in pass blocking. It's not good. It is not what you want to see out of your left tackle in terms of pass blocking. But I'm not blaming Theo Benedict for any of that. I'm blaming Ozzie Trapillo. I'm blaming Braxton Jones. I'm blaming Karan Amagaji. These are the guys that can't get it done at left tackle. This is the 3-year starter, the second-round pick, the third-round pick that aren't getting it done at left tackle. So here comes his second-year UDFA stepping in and doing a far better job than any of them had shown in any spot. When you look at what Amagaji did in preseason, what Trapillo did in preseason, what Braxton Jones did early in the season, the tape Benedict's putting down is better. Is it great in pass blocking? No, it's not. It's problematic in pass blocking. But this is a scrappy guy, an aggressive guy. If he, run game, the block he hit on Geno Stone, I don't know if you've seen it. Google or go into Twitter, whatever, Theo Benedict, Geno Stone. It'll pop up. The block he put on the Ravens safety. He drove him like 25 yards, drove him like 8 yards out of bounds, and just drilled him into the bench. Like in the, I hate to bring it up because it's not, the movie hasn't aged well, but in the Blind Side movie where, he takes the defensive lineman and drives him back like 75 yards and dumps him over the wall. That felt like that kind of block. That's the kind of thing that Theo Benedict did there. It was absolutely incredible what he accomplished. Now, when we look at the rest of the team, we see much improved from Colston Loveland. We'll see about him moving forward if he can be more involved in the offense. Rome Odunze, a no-show. I saw a couple people talking about James Odunze. I'm not worried about that. He can spout off whatever he wants to spout off. That's not going to impact the Bears at all. But Rome Odunze is still Rome Odunze. DJ Moore, Zacchaeus. We got to, there's still work. It's a work in progress on the offense. The defense didn't generate a lot of pressure. Joe Flacco ripped him to shreds. That's going to be a problem. This defense is not a good defense unless they're getting turnovers. That is the only time this defense looks very good is when they create turnovers. They were doing it for a while. And again, like we talked about it with Ann Herron. It's cyclical. It's not sustainable to turn the ball over that much. And here's where the Chicago Bears end up with a defense that gets slashed. Joe Flacco. You realize this? Joe Flacco has thrown for over 200 yards in the fourth quarter the last 2 times he's played the Chicago Bears. I don't know what it is about Joe Flacco and Bears games, but they are crazy. That game on Sunday, crazy. The Browns game where Flus blew it and the missed Hail Mary, crazy. Other games Joe Flacco has played against the Bears. The 2019 Broncos game where Mitch converted the 4th and 15 to Allen Robinson and they kicked the game. They got the clock stopped with a second to go and Eddie Pinheiro kicks like a 55-yard field goal to win it. That was a Joe Flacco game. The Ravens game where they had 2 special teams touchdowns. Adrian Amos had a 90-yard pick six. That was a Joe Flacco game. The 2013, remember the weather delay against the Ravens where the skies turned purple? They had to evacuate the stadium and cram everyone in there. I was at that game. Cram everyone in the concourse. Someone had the giant from Ghostbusters, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, trying to get into the stadium because the sky was that ominous. That was a Joe Flacco game. I don't understand what happens with Joe Flacco, but it is wild what happens when he plays the Bears. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. The 40-year-old, time to hang it up. You don't need to be on the Bears schedule next year if he's on whatever team he's on, if he decides to keep playing. And we'll wrap it up with special teams. I'm not going to talk about it too much because of the fact that Patrick Mannelly is going to be joining me here in a couple minutes. But I did say it, and I'm going to ask Patrick about this. I'm going to assume he's going to disagree with me because I'm a hothead and he's a level-headed football player who actually knows what he's looking at with special teams. But I tweeted out before the game ended, after the onside kick went Cincinnati's way. And I said, win or lose, let's be honest, Richard Hightower should be fired tomorrow. Now, I knew Richard Hightower was not going to be fired tomorrow, but Richard Hightower should not be back in 2026. That's where we're at here. The Bears kick coverage, they are 30th in the league in terms of the opponent's starting field position. We've seen the punt gunners don't seem to be getting down and covering punts consistently. Cairo Santos has regressed. He's, Torrey Taylor is not the guy the Bears drafted. I'm not saying you can blame all this on Richard Hightower, but what positives are coming out of special teams right now? I'm not seeing it. And I want to ask Patrick Mannelly about this. We're going to talk about the Bengals game and the craziness and everything else with Patrick Mannelly. But the bottom line here is the Bears special teams. If the Bears lost that game, you can point at Dennis Allen, you can point at the defense, you can point at a lot of things. But the one thing everyone would agree you'd have to point at is the failure of the special teams. Patrick Mannelly is going to talk about this next. He joins me next. Bill Zimmerman, Bears Banter. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the podcast. Excited to do this guest. He's come on every year the last few years. It's always a great conversation because we talk about the offense, we talk about the defense, but the one thing we never get a chance to talk about enough is special teams. And Patrick Mannelly, there is no one better to talk special teams than with him. We're going to talk about this 5-3 Chicago Bears team. Of course, you hear him on 670 The Score. You can get Long Snapper IPA in the Chicago area. And he joins me now. Patrick, Bill Zimmerman, how you doing?
I'm doing great. We're 5-3. It's a lot better this year than it's been in the past. So we got some positivity and positive things to talk about. But you mentioned special teams there, and I'm sure we'll get to it. That was not so good last week.
That we absolutely need to dive into that. But I want to start with positives because, like you said, this team is 5-3. That really seems to be, to me, I've talked about it a ton on the podcast. I feel like a broken record. It feels like a culture change at Hallis Hall that this team it's learning how to win football games. It's believing. It's not letting the mistake cripple them and put their heads down. They are fighting and clawing for every point and every yard. And these games that they're winning, the Raiders game, the obviously the Bengals game, these are the games in the past that I just feel they would not have won these games once they lost the lead or whatever it would be.
Sure.
It's changed. So what was the experience for you watching that Bengals game? And does this Bears team have a different vibe for you this year?
There's no doubt. And those are great points because there is a culture change and it's belief. And you said believe. You said the word believe there. And I talked about in the post game with Olin that there's belief. This is 3 close games they've won. And it's come down to the last plays of the game in the fourth quarter when they've had to come through and do it. And in the years past, we've done these podcasts. I've done post game shows. They found ways to lose. Well, now they're finding ways to win. And you do that first with starting off believing. They got the ball back with 50 seconds to go. And I'm sitting next to Olin, my radio host, and he goes, all right, Caleb, let's do this. Where in the years past, even Chicago fans would be like, oh, no, what are we going to do to lose this, right? So this belief is not only, in the fandom, it's that same way on the sideline, that they know when they get the ball back or they have an opportunity, now somebody's going to come through and do it. Josh Blackwell blocking a field goal to Caleb doing what he's doing with a rookie tight end. What a throw and a catch and a run by Colston Loveland at the end. But, yeah, there's a big culture change, man. It's this belief, and it's seeping out into us as fans too. So I'm watching games. I'm like, hey, all right, they gave up the lead. They gave up 14 points. That was ugly as could be, but you gave Caleb some time. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, I brought this up when I started off the podcast here before you jumped on. Totally different type of team because this is obviously they're scoring points. Mm-hmm. And in 2001, it was more of a defensive-oriented team. But I'm starting to get that 2001 vibe. And you were on that team. And that's why I wanted to bring it up with the Mike Brown and the Browns Hail Mary. And it just feels like this has that same kind of vibe about a football team where we can sit there and look at them and go, how good are they? I'm not quite sure yet. But damn it, they know how to win football games.
That's really good, Bill, because I was going to say the 2005 team because we went to the Super Bowl the next year. But you're right, because it does go back to 2001 because a lot of us were on that 2001 team. And that's when we learned how to win in the NFL. And those were crazy 2 games with Mike Brown. And obviously Mike Brown was still there, Urlacher, myself, Olin, guys that played on those teams. We learned. And that's when the culture change started to happen. And it took us a little while to catch back up and we changed coaches. But For sure. That's a great point, because it does start in that locker room with guys, with games you're winning the way you are, that you believe you can do it in the future. And that helped us get into the 2006 year and get to a Super Bowl. Unfortunately lost, but it did start in 2001. That's a great comparison.
All right. Let's talk about some of the individuals on this team, and let's not bury it with Caleb Williams. We'll start right there, because let's just start with the Loveland throw. Like you talked about how good of a throw that was. And it looked great on the broadcast. And then when you see the coach's tape and you see the all 22 and you see that a tick earlier and it wasn't going to get completed. A tick later, he was decisive with it, because he dropped back, drilled that ball exactly when it needed to. And Loveland bounces off the tacklers and goes. I said, if he had gotten tackled at the 5, Patrick, we might have been having a wildly different conversation, because I don't know if they would have been able to get on the ball and spike it. But regardless, he gets to the end zone. To me, that Williams throw was just the epitome of who he can be as a quarterback, in terms of just decisive and drilling and making a great throw. And I've seen a lot of people, he still looks a little frantic. He took a bad sack. Sometimes I feel like people are looking for criticisms rather than just evaluating what they've seen. But I was a little nervous after the Vikings game week 1, but I've seen a lot of growth and improvement. The sack rate, there's a lot of positives. It's not perfect, but there's a lot of positives with Caleb Williams.
There's no doubt about it. That throw was spectacular. And I was a little hard on Caleb in the postgame show. I wanted to see more overall, but I just finished it all 22 earlier this morning. He played pretty damn well, and you saw a lot of that arm talent. That last throw is exactly what we're talking about, and everybody was talking about, and why he got drafted where he was. But there is still growth there, Bill. There's a lot of growth, and I want to see it as the pre and post snap, just recognition of what's going to happen, so the game kind of slows down for him. I still think he has a ways to go for that, but there were so many throws. I mean, we've seen throws to DJ to I know he didn't play, but DeAndre Swift just laying it in there and him catching it one-handed. These just miraculous throws he's making under pressure are phenomenal. So he definitely has the arm talent. But more importantly, the great quarterbacks, they perform in 2-minute drills. They score points before the half, and they score points at the end of the game. And we're seeing that with him. And just think about that. He's already doing that now and starting number 25, and he still has not matured yet as far as his football understanding of the NFL defenses and NFL coverages, blitzes, and all that kind of stuff. And as he does, I think he's going to be that much better.
Yeah, and we talked about this last year. I know you and I did, and I did with a couple other offensive lineman types who talked about how, as the season progressed during his rookie season, he definitely trusted the offensive line less and less and less. And as a young quarterback, if you don't trust the protection, everything is just going to kind of collapse around you. And it feels a lot different this year. And that's why I think we've seen so many positives in terms of him standing in the pocket and making a throw. Even if the pocket's not perfect and it's a little choppy, he doesn't mind standing in there, because he believes that Tooney and Dolman and Jackson are going to keep guys off of him, and he's going to have space to throw. And when he does need to scramble and make a play, it's not as catastrophic if things don't go well. So the offensive line has looked so much better this year. And Theo Benedict, I know the pass blocking is not what it needs to be, but as a second-year UDFA who doesn't necessarily have the traits you're looking for in a tackle, the way he attacks, blocks,
the run game.
It's fun to watch. And when Amagachi and Trapillo and Jones can't get it done, and we're basically on the 4th string left tackle at this point, and he steps up and gets it done, it's fun to watch. Yeah,
credit to him. And I'll go back to Caleb, because when I was watching the game, I sit there and I watch it with Mike Mulligan, who's our host, and Olin, and Mully's like, throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball. And you want Caleb to throw the ball. Well, you're yelling that, but that means there's protection, right? So 2 things there. One, Caleb is sitting in the pocket a tick longer than he did last year, so he is trusting that offensive line. But a couple of times where Mully was yelling it, and I was kind of saying the same thing, guys weren't open. So I give Caleb credit for sitting in the pocket a little bit longer, because before you'd see him just always spin out of the pocket, right? Yep. He still spins out of the pocket, but he's given himself an extra half second, another half read or read in the progression. So that's progression in him as well. Back to Theo Benedict, the guys, I mean, there's a reason why they've run for over 250 yards the last 2 games. Up front, all 5 of them are just like, knocking the hell out of guys up front. It's fun. I mean, I say that it's O-line porn. It's one where you go into that O-line meeting and you walk out and you're smoking a cigarette because you're like, holy cow, man. That was fun to watch. They're knocking the heck out of guys. Guys are getting blown off the ball. And It's just a lot of fun to watch. And a lot has to do with Theo. Theo can get better in pass blocking. He needs to. And I'm watching the tape again today. If you had a player that was a notch or two better at pass blocking at left tackle, Caleb would be that much more comfortable. You can kind of tell that he's just waiting off his left side what's coming, because there is a lot of pressure there. The second to last play where he escaped is unbelievable and made that scramble to get to the Colston throw. But Theo, for what he's being asked to do and for where he's come from, is doing a heck of a job.
Yeah, no, he really is. Did you see the block he put on Geno Stone?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome.
And
Darnell Wright's block on the 3 technique on
Shamar Turner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, that's why I call it O-line porn. I don't know if I can say it on your podcast, but it's just that's what we would say in the O-line meetings. I mean, you could not wait. When we got done with the post-game show, I looked at Olin, because I used to go to the O-line room with the guys, and I'd be like, man, after games like that, I could not wait till Monday to go into that meeting room and watch the coach hit the clicker, rewind, fast forward, all these just knockoffs, those big plays, the pancakes. I mean, that's what it was. I mean, they just all across the board, all 5 of them had a great day in the run game.
And Darnell Wright, who you brought up, I mean, we were remiss not to talk about him for a minute, because what he's done with Dan Rochard this year in terms of his growth and who he's become. Like, yes. I can't sit here and say I'm watching O-line tape of every tackle in the league, but it'd be hard-pressed to imagine if he was not a top 10 tackle in the league right now.
Agreed. He started off slow, right? The first 2 weeks he struggled. Yep. Everybody was talking about it. It was on tape, but he has definitely improved. And again, after watching that tape again today, Jonah Jackson and Darnell Wright, whatever 3 technique in the league, whoever you're going against those guys, you're like, gosh, dang it. I got to go against I better get my double chin strap pulled a little tighter, because those 2 guys, they're bringing it. They got to be probably the best duo block right now in the NFL.
Yeah, and it looks so clean, and that brings us to Kyle. Yes. Yeah, it brings us to Kyle Mannelly, who an incredible game. And when you see some of the running lanes that they were giving him, of course he's going to have that good of a game. Sure. And the one thing that I really love with Mannelly that I saw against Cincinnati, and I get the Bengals defense is awful. Like, we can't not.
But Bill, again, it's still an NFL defense. I don't care. They put up 47 points. I don't care who you're doing against. It's an NFL defense. So you got to give them credit. But I understand they are the worst one, but they are in the NFL, and that normally does not happen, putting up 47 points and 250-plus yards.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And Mannelly, he hits these running lanes, and we saw it previously, in between the tackles. He runs hard, and he's a good north-south runner. But I really was impressed how he looked at this when he got out to the second and third levels. Moving, running with angles and running to space, and not just, well, I'm running forward, I'm just going to run into this guy and knock him over and get a couple of yards. He found ways to find an extra 7, 8, sometimes 15 or 20 yards, because he was running intelligently and running with vision. And that's not something I knew he had. And that was great to see.
Yeah, the downfield vision was impressive. But here's the thing, the knock on the reason why he was drafted, he's not a home run hitter, right? If you watch that game, I'm going to go to DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift watching that game Sunday had to be like, man, I wish I had the rock today. Because a lot of those plays, I mean, they were great runs, but potentially were more home runs if you had a DeAndre Swift type in there. But Kyle Mannelly is proving to be I would say a steal in the 7th round. That's a steal in the 7th round to see the running style that he had in college and be able to bring it to the NFL. It's better than I thought it would be. And that proof on Sunday.
Yeah. Do you think Mannelly and Swift can be, and I understand Jahmyr Gibbs is incredible, but do you think it can be that Gibbs Montgomery that Ben Johnson loved in Detroit?
No, that's a different level. I think you've got 2 players similar to that, but it's good and it's better, right? And those guys actually might be the best 1-2. You can argue they might be, just because of their styles and their level of play is just a little bit better.
Let me ask you about the defense, because look, I mean, when this defense was getting turnovers, they looked like a great unit. And I like the first, especially the first half against the Saints before that, the last 2 minutes. I mean, they looked like the 85 Bears out there, the way they were hitting and swarming the ball. But we have seen a lot of bumpy games and a lot of, I understand there's been a lot of injuries facing this defense, and we've seen a lot of second stringers out there, but we've consistently seen them struggle getting pressure on the quarterback. Now Odengbo, who I wasn't having a great season, but again, you're going to lose depth on the edge room because he's going to miss the rest of the season. There's some problems on this defense. I think they're stopping the run pretty well, but they are really struggling, keeping quarterbacks under check.
Yeah, I was hoping that when you lose all your DBs that you find a pass rush, and they haven't done that. Montez Sweat hasn't. He is a good football player. He's not a great pass rusher, if that makes sense. So
It
that
does.
hurts the DBs. So when you lose all those DBs, you're hoping your guys up front can win with 4, right? They're not doing that. Dio had a nice first game against the Minnesota Vikings. After that, he's fallen off with his pass rush. You haven't seen much. So when you don't have either of those, they're going to struggle. And you got a Nick McLeod playing everywhere. You get to a point where you got to go get or a CD Gardner Johnson off the street to take place of somebody who's been on your roster for 7 weeks. That says a lot about your depth. Granted, I thought Gardner Johnson played pretty well for stepping in, coming off the street after a couple of weeks of coming from the Texans or whatever. But there's just not a lot of depth there. That's a game where an offensive coordinator, when you get the depth chart, you're looking at it, you're like, okay, I can take advantage of this, and this, not just this and this, or just one player. There's a lot of holes on this defense right now.
So what would you try and do? Like if Dennis Allen called you up and goes, Patrick, I'm not saying Dennis Allen's looking for advice, but I say, what would you try and do? What would you tweak to try and make this defense a little more productive?
I think this is why they got Gardner Johnson. If you watched 2 weeks ago when Kyler Gordon was back, right, you saw Brisker and Kyler Gordon lined up next to each other blitzing. There was a lot more blitzing with Kyler Gordon playing down in the box in the run. CD Johnson Gardner was playing the same kind of way. He got a sack. He brought off Brisker, and Gardner Johnson came off the same side. They had a sack that week when Kyler Gordon played the same way.
Right.
That's what I would do. I would use him in the same role, because when Dennis Allen got here, what did he say? He couldn't wait to work with Kyler Gordon, and I think he had thoughts in his mind how he could dial up blitzes, how he could line guys, and I think that's why he went out and got Gardner Johnson to be able to do similar kind of stuff. So I think we'll see more of that.
All right, now, full disclosure to the audience here. We're recording this prior to the NFL trade deadline, and it's going to be put out after the NFL trade deadline. Yeah. So more of a philosophical question for you. As the Bears approach this deadline, they're a 5-3 team, but they do have. I know Dangbo's out, but Sweat makes $25 million. Odengo makes $16 million. I've heard Jermaine Johnson could be a guy maybe they're going after, but he's got $14 million guaranteed next year. It's a little tricky to maneuver. Would you like to see the Bears make a move here to try and fortify the defense at all? And would you like to see it be a fairly significant move, or just kind of like chip around the edges?
I think depth right now. I think if you take an honest look at this team, and I'm sure they are at Hallis Hall, they're not ready for a Super Bowl. They're not ready for a playoff run. I think a successful year would be to get into the playoffs. And the way to do that right now is add some depth and hope this offense can continue to grow and they're not going to put up 47 points every week, but be more of a juggernaut, than they have been, and maybe slide into the playoffs. And I think right now with the draft capital they have, that's more important than trading that for a game changer, a cap changer as well. I think if you could find some depth right now, because Daniel Hardy's a nice player. He's a nice special teams player, but if I'm there, Dennis Allen, I'd be like, hey, can I not have him as my second string pass rusher? Can you give me somebody else over there? So right now I'd go for depth.
All right. Now, with the time we have left, I'd love to ask you some about the special teams and multiple questions on this, because there's multiple things. So, in terms of everything that happened in the Bengals game and kind of looking at things in the big picture to the season so far, let's start with the kickoff coverage.
Yeah.
Because obviously the Bears gave up a kick return for a touchdown. They gave up another big one there as well. They're, in response, their kick returns haven't been quite as strong, at least in my eyes. Maybe you see something different.
No, you're
but
right.
The kickoffs either direction have not been strong. And, I understand, the kickoff coverage has changed wildly since you were playing in the league. But what do you take on what Richard Hightower's units are doing on kickoffs here? Because it just, it's not working when you're the 30th ranked, opponent's field position in the NFL.
I mean, the simple thing first is they're getting blocked. Okay. So just for example, on the big kickoff return for the touchdown, Daniel Hardy is their best special teams player in my mind. So when you are going against the Bears, you're going to double team him, and they double teamed him on that one. And when you get double teamed, you got to hold your stance. Like, you can't get moved. All right. You're not going to break it and make the tackle, but your job is to kind of hold that spot so the returner has to bounce. Well, Daniel Hardy on that play got blocked and moved way out of the hole, and everybody, 43, I forgot his name. He ran behind the block, so everything opened up. So what I'm getting at is guys aren't doing their job. That's basically all it is. The guys are running behind blocks. They're getting blocked. They're not recognizing the return. Sometimes you say if a guy's blocking with the upfield shoulder, that means that's the way the return's going to go. You can't go underneath. You've got to go over top. They're going underneath, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of just individual mistakes all the way across the board. And I would hope they'd be better with Travis Homer, Daniel Hardy, Josh Blackwell. Those are three darn good special teams players. You name those three, you should be a good unit. But some of the other guys are really struggling, and I think that's the issue.
So the issue is more in terms of talent, in terms of really quality special teamers, and not high tower design.
Yeah. You have Walker, who's playing on all special teams, right? The receiver, he's struggling. I hate to call him out, but he is. I'm sure that they're sitting there with the red dot on him saying, hey, man, you've got to make this play. You're falling off the block here. You're going behind the block. There's a lot of times he's making mistakes, but that's all the way across the board. Elijah Hicks made some coverage errors as well, and I would expect him not to because he's a veteran now. So a lot of guys are just making errors, and I don't know what the coaching points are. Is it coaching? Is it scheme? It's a little bit of both when it's as bad as it was, but the players just aren't making plays right now.
All right, and let me ask you about the onside kick, obviously,
yes.
which propelled them to lose the lead. It hits Daniel Hardy in the foot, makes it a live ball before 10 yards. The Bengals jump on it. Is that an awareness issue with Hardy?
Yes.
Is it just bad luck?
Yes.
Like exactly what happened there?
Eyes on the ball. So when you're the hands team, people argue, why isn't everybody there, like receivers, tight ends, or whatever? Well, you have to have blockers, and that's the way it is. You block the front line that's covering. So Daniel Hardy and Noah Sewell were on the right side to block. Their job is to keep their eyes on the ball. McPherson was lined up to kick it to the right, but what he did is he turned the last second and pulled it to the left. That stuff you walk through on Saturday. You talk about all the different kicks he's done in the past. You scout him. You say, this can happen. This is what can happen out of these looks. You're ready for it. But the most important thing is everybody on the front line, their eyes are on that ball. So it means it can go right. It can go left. It can go straight. It can be like a pancake kick. It can be that kind of helicoptering thing. Daniel Hardy didn't really have his eyes on the balls. Noah Sewell took off and blocked right away. Daniel Hardy hesitated and then went to block. Because he hesitated, the ball wasn't going to go 10 yards. It hit him in the foot. But so the coaching point there is eyes on the ball. You see the ball come to you, you go block whatever number it is, 1, 2, or 3 on the outside, and he didn't do it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about our kicker here, Cairo Santos. If you want to talk about Jake Moody, we can do that as well, because to me, and look, I love the fact that Cairo Santos, if it's about 44 yards or less, he will never miss.
Yeah.
But, in today's league, not being able to kick at 54, 55 plus is a detriment to the team at this point. Obviously, we can go back to the Minnesota game where he wasn't able to kick the ball through the end zone. It's something that most kickers can do at this point. Is it time, despite what Santos has in terms of strengths, is it time to move on from Santos? Are you give Jake Moody a shot? I mean, the one missed field goal he had basically kicked into the offensive line. It was such a low trajectory kick.
Yeah.
He's not perfect either. Obviously, the 49ers got rid of him for a reason. Where are you at with the Bears kickers?
There's 32 teams, and he is one of the best 32 kickers in the league. If you ask the Atlanta Falcons right now if they would take Cairo Santos, they wouldn't heartbeat.
Lost on
They're on the third or fourth guy, right? So they've missed a couple, throughout the season. So he is an NFL kicker. He's a very good kicker, but there is weaknesses, right? Every player has a weakness. Theo Benedict is not good at pass blocking, but he's great at run blocking. So everybody has a weakness. I'm okay with Cairo. Do you want better? Sure, but that's something you take care of in the offseason. That's something you bring in a Jake Moody or somebody in the offseason to compete, and then you let it go from there. But for right now, I'm sticking with Cairo. Jake had a nice run for us for 2 weeks. What I saw in San Francisco was a little too inconsistent. I would be afraid to put Cairo on the waiver wire. Atlanta would pick him up like that, and then you're just not certain what you have with Jake. So I'm sticking with Cairo for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that was the one thing. And I love Jake Moody winning the game against Washington. That was a great story. It was fun. The team rallied around him. But at the same time, I would sit there and say, if the Bears are contending for a playoff spot in week 17 against San Francisco, week 18 against Detroit, and they decided to pivot to Jake Moody, my heart's going to be thumping in my chest there if he's got a clutch kick he needs to make in the fourth quarter.
It was against the Commanders, right? I think we all were, because I've just had seen him enough. I think it was a 72.3%, 74%, I think, with the 49ers, and I was like, oh no, what's he going to do? But actually, credit to him, man. They showed the camera of his eyes before that game-winning kick, and I was like, oh, he's got this. And that was cool to see. You can tell confidence in people just through their eyes, and he had it and he made it. So credit to him, but right now I would stick with Cairo.
All right, and let's finish with the punting game. And look, my expectations for Torrey Taylor, if you're going to spend a 4th round pick on a punter, he better be a top 5 punter in the league. I understand there's an adjustment, but like it better happen pretty quickly. He's not there. Now, again, he had a great play, punt against Baltimore that got called back from a penalty that was down at the 1 or whatever it was. He's had some moments. He had the monstrous 70+ yard punt. Like, I'm not saying Torrey's bad. I think he's a good punter, but to me, there's still a little something missing in terms of what they expected to get out of him. Of course, now you're pairing him with a head coach that at midfield wants to go for it on 4th down all the time. So
but he started off slow, and I was kind of shocked. I thought a lot of times I've seen punters and kickers struggle their rookie year and then take that big step the next year, where some players had their sophomore slump as a position player, but I've seen a lot of kickers and punters take that jump, and he didn't early. But you said that punt last week and that 71-yarder this week, that's what we need more of. And that's back-to-back weeks he's had clutch punts. And it's unfortunate that, they had the illegal procedure on that one punt, but he is punting better. So now he's getting to what I wanted to see. So we'll see what he does for the rest of the year, but he has struggled at the start of the season.
Now, the one thing I remember when we spoke last year and I asked you about how Taylor was doing as a rookie year, you said the one thing he really needs to do is speed up his process in terms of catching the ball and getting the punt out. How has that improved, or is that still something that needs
very much so? There was a punt, fourth quarter punt backed up where there was some pressure that maybe last year that thing's blocked. You know what I mean? It's the guys leaked a little bit on the inside, the A gap. Last year that might have been blocked, but his get off, from snap to catch to kick has gotten a lot. It looks faster. I haven't put a clock on it yet, but seeing that rush that they put on him, the Bengals put on him last year, that might have been blocked, and it was not blocked Sunday.
And last one on the coverage here, on the punt coverage. Mm-hmm. I've heard some people talk about how the Gunners are struggling getting down there. Some people have said some of Taylor's punts are more line drive, not enough hang time there. What on some of the larger punt returns the Bears have given up? Has it been a Taylor issue? Has it been a coverage issue? Has it been both? What's been happening there?
It's more of the hang time. There's been a few that have been almost like 4 seconds, and you can't have that. That's unacceptable. Like, you need to be closer. If you're going to hit something 45, 47 yards, it needs to be closer to 5 seconds. So think about a full second of somebody running full speed down the field. They're covering a lot of ground. So a lot of those big returns early were bad hang time. They were just kind of mishits and line drives that were getting right to the returner.
All right. And so last one for you, kind of big picture kind of thing. What is one thing you'd like to see the Bears consistent, like if it was just one, consistently improve upon at this point on any unit, special teams, offense or defense, moving forward in terms of trying to push for the playoffs?
Scoring points. Now it's seriously, no, it's simple, but now it's this time for this offense to score points. That's why Ben Johnson is here. We've struggled in the red zone. They fixed that last week. But with the way the defense is playing, they're going to give up points. So now it's time for Ben Johnson and that offense. And I talk about on the post game, I can't wait. And I'm excited to hear Ben Johnson talk after a game about himself and deflect that instead of talking about how great the defense played. And now it's time for Ben Johnson to be deflecting. Oh, no, it's not me. And they scored 30 whatever points, and they won games that way. That's what I want to see, is points on the board.
I think that's something we'd all love to see. Well, there he is, Patrick Mannelly of 670 The Score. Of course, longtime Chicago Bears long snapper. Make sure you get that long snapper IPA. As any good beer drinker appreciates a good beer. Patrick, thank you for so much time. Really enjoyed the conversation and hope to do it down the line.
All right. Talk to you later, Bill.
All right. There he is, Patrick Mannelly, everybody. That was a great conversation. The one thing I love about Patrick Mannelly conversations the most is I always learn something because, if I'm being frank, special teams knowledge is probably my least knowledgeable area on a football field. I would assume it's Patrick's best. He knows it so well. He teaches me something every time he comes on. I hope he does the same for you. Now, the way we recorded this podcast is Patrick was available this morning. That was Tuesday morning, so we did it then. I did my intro, obviously, that I do before Patrick. I did that before he came on, and I paused, and I didn't do the mailbag and the final segment until this evening after I wrapped up work because I wanted to make sure we had the trade deadline in this podcast. So the Bears remain relatively quiet. They go out and get one man. That is Joe Tryon Shoyinka. I got to get that in my head. Shoyinka. Joe Tryon Shoyinka. Now, Joe Tryon was the Bucks, I believe, first round pick about 5 years ago. I actually had him on my dynasty team. I thought he was going to be a good player. Hasn't done much. He's, been relatively ineffective. I think this is now going to be his fourth team. Things just haven't worked out for him. He's a warm body. He is going to help with the depth. He's better than Daniel Hardy as a defensive end. I think I can confidently say that. He's better than what Dominique Robinson has been. If Dominique Robinson, what he flashed a little bit is who he is right now and not just a hot streak, then I don't know if he's better than that Dominique Robinson, but he's better than the other Dominique Robinson we've seen the last 3 years. So, he would settle in behind Austin Booker and give this edge room a little bit of depth, which they desperately needed after Dayo Odengbo also went down for the season with an Achilles. Obviously, he's had previous Achilles injuries. That's going to be significant. Like the Dayo Odengbo, that situation there, we can officially call that free agency signing a bust. And, look, I didn't like it when it happened. I told you I didn't like the money. I didn't like a lot of things about it. I didn't like the idea of paying for what he could potentially be, not what he currently is. I never think that's a good idea. It really sucks for him that he's injured. He's out for the year. Sucks for the team. It's not like he's useless. He's, although that's what Tom Waddle and Yurko apparently think of him. Think he has absolutely just that he hustles. And other than that, he's got no real value to the defense. But he's still, he's better than Daniel Hardy, right? I think he is pretty good in the run game. Nothing with the pass rush, but I think he's at least decent in the run game. So I will not go as far as Sylvie did on the podcast a couple podcasts ago, but I do understand that because, again, I didn't like the signing. The reason I say we can call that a bust is we're sitting there and it's a 3-year deal. It's 2 years guaranteed. We're going to assume he's coming back next year. We're going to assume that this Achilles injury is early enough in the season that even if he's limited in the summer program, he's not going to play in the spring program. If he's limited in the summer program, he should at least be back by week 1 or close to it. If that happens. But if that happens, I assume we're going to see a player who's not nearly the player he was this year, which means he's going to not be good. And that means the Bears are not going to pick up the third year. They're going to let him go after year 2. And if he's not ready next year, if he's not ready in September, there may be an injury settlement, and that's it for Odengbo. So we'll see exactly what happens here with him moving forward. Unfortunate with the injury, unfortunate that it didn't turn out. You thought it was predictable, but it does put the Bears in a pickle where you just don't have anyone in the edge room. So they go out and they get, we'll call him JTS moving forward to make things a little easier. They bring in JTS, who is a body, and he's going to help the depth a little bit, but no, he is not going to turn heads. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson was their, in essence, big move there in terms of the trade deadline. You bring in a viable starting caliber cornerback. They desperately needed that. When Kyler Gordon gets back, assuming he gets back here maybe, early to mid-December, and they can have him for the last 4 games or so of the regular season, then that's a good problem to have, assuming everyone else is still upright at that point in the season. Who knows? Maybe Jalen Johnson's coming back at that point too, and the Bears secondary could get vastly improved for the end of the season. We'll see if they can get that lucky. But the one thing I want to address on this is a lot of Chicago Bears fans seem upset that the Bears didn't make a big swing. And I can't disagree with that stance more. I think Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles deserve credit for understanding where this team is, what it needs, and not doing anything, big that would cost the team future draft capital and everything. And let me break it down by this. The Bears are pretty good. The Bears are not great. The Bears may be great in a year or two, but they're not great now. And trading draft capital for an aging player or a questionable player is not a good idea. And what I mean by questionable players, I'll bring it up. Jermaine Johnson. That seemed to be an edge a lot of people wanted from the Jets. Jermaine Johnson has, I believe, 1 sack this year. He may not even have any sacks this year. He has not been a productive player for the Jets this season. The reason he's still a New York Jet is because the Jets wanted a 2nd-round pick for him and apparently could not get it. So Jermaine Johnson remains with the Jets. Now, he is in the 4th year. He was a 1st-round pick, so the 5th-round option has been picked up. That is a guaranteed $14 million for Jermaine Johnson next year. Now, if you're going to give up a 2nd-round pick, and I'm glad the Bears didn't, even if you were going to give up a 3rd-round pick, because I assume if there's conversations there, And Jordan Schultz also said there were conversations about Jermaine Johnson and the Bears. So believe that actually happened. It means the Bears were at least sitting there going 3rd round pick. If Bears wanted to give him a 4th round pick and the Jets were insistent on a 2nd round pick, that's not a trade that's close to happening. 3rd round pick is, I think, where it's at least close to happening. If the Bears were going to give up a 3rd round pick, that's enough capital. You have to extend him at that point. So and Jermaine Johnson, we just talked about Odengbo. The reason Jermaine Johnson isn't good this year is he's coming off an Achilles injury. And he's been ineffective this year as far as I've seen. And I've watched the Jets a few times because I live in New York. He's not getting it done. So the Jets are hoping that someone was going to pay for who he was in 2023, which was a good edge. But that's not who he is now, and that's coming off a major injury. We don't know if he will be. So you're going to pay him a $14 million salary guaranteed next year when you've already got Odengbo at $16 million and Sweat for $25 million. Now, again, that may change. There may be moves made at that point, but then that's 3 edges currently on the roster for something like $55 million. And then, like I said, I really think you need to extend him. So what kind of extension is that contract going to be? I think it's going to be north of $20 million because someone's going to pay Jermaine Johnson for who they think he can be. Again, risky thing to do. And now you're committing money, big money, to a player that you don't know how good this player is going to be. So Jermaine Johnson, I thought, was a terrible idea. Going out and getting Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals wanted a 1, maybe a 1+. Maybe you're giving up a 1st round pick and like a 3rd round pick next year, like 4th round pick. That's getting to be way too much at that point. Because Trey Hendrickson, 31, and he's going to need a new contract. So now you got to go pay Trey Hendrickson $35 million a year. And I get he's an excellent player, but you don't know where that cliff is for a guy north of 31 years old. Yeah, he might give you 3 or 4 more productive years, or this might be it. He may never be the player he ever is again. It might be an average edge next year you're paying 35 million for, and you're paying for name value, not for production on the field. And the Chicago Bears, like we said, they're not ready. Like, objectively, are the Bears a good football team? And I love what's happening. Don't get me wrong. 5-3, winning these games like this is fun. I'm enjoying watching this football team, but are they good? Their defense is getting shredded if they're not getting turnovers. They have no pass rush. The special teams is woefully inadequate, and the offense is inconsistent. So you can't say the Bears are good. They're winning football games, but you can't say they're good. So if they're not good and they need to retool the roster still for next year, and they're still trying to get things in Ben Johnson's vision, and they're cleaning things up, is it time to go out and spend draft capital to bring someone in to make sure the Bears team goes 10-7 and not 9-8 and squeaks into the playoffs? No, thanks. You're the 7 seed. You're going up against the Rams or the Eagles, even Tampa on the road. No, thanks. There's just too many. This is not where the Bears are right now. The Bears played it smart. They gave up almost no draft capital, and they didn't lose any picks. They just downgraded a 6 to a 7, and they've got now CJ Gardner-Johnson and JTS. So right now, I am glad the Bears didn't make a big move. That may be an unpopular opinion, but that's how I see it. So I wanted to make sure I recorded this portion later because I wanted to make sure we had the trade deadline covered and what the Bears did or did not do. So let's get to the mailbag here. Let's start with Brent Murphy, who says the Bears are up against it in 2026. How are they going to cut guys to make cap space while also replacing them? Example, cut Sweat is there. Really anybody better in free agency? I mean, if we cut JJ Sweat and Tremaine, that's a lot to replace, and we already need a left tackle, safety, cornerback, running back, etc. Brent, I talked about this on last week's podcast. I've talked about it before. The Bears are in a bit of a pickle, and that's why you really need this draft class, not just like Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. You need these day 2 and day 3 picks to really become quality players. I know not all of them are going to hit, but they need some of them to hit. And they need these draft classes moving forward to be better than they've been. End of story. And I know the first and the second round picks have largely been good, right? With Darnell Wright and Tyreek Stevenson and obviously Caleb and Rome. Like we know the first and second round picks have been largely good. But where the issue with Pep Poles is the third rounds and later. right? There hasn't been much. There's been Braxton Jones. This is obviously his last season on the team. That's okay. You still got 3 quality years of left tackle play out of a 5th round pick. That's a really good job by Ryan Poles. But you need these other players to be key contributors on the team. You need the Kyle Manon guys, right? And these guys, they haven't come through for Ryan Poles. They're just not guys that have stuck on the roster for the most part. So with Ryan Poles now moving forward, Brent, to make this work, the Bears need to start having contributors on day 3 picks and day 2 picks. It needs to start happening more regularly. It hasn't happened before, and it's been okay. The Bears have been able to sign free agents, cheaper veteran guys who are perfectly capable at playing at the caliber of a rookie. So there hasn't been an issue there. They've been able to cover the fact that those guys haven't hit much. But now, like you said, they're up against it in the cap. Right now, I believe the number is 39 players. 50, the top 51, if you don't know exactly how it works with salary cap, the top 51 is what covers towards the salary cap. Anyone below that in terms of salary, it's going to be vet minimums and rookie minimums at that point. They don't count towards the cap. So it's how you basically get all the key spots covered as you do the top 51. I believe they have 39 guys signed right now. And those 39 guys signed puts them $3.5 million under the projected cap for next season, which is going to be about $300 million, as that's what people are expecting. That being the case, the Chicago Bears, let's say they sign, 4 vet minimum guys, it's, give or take, and that means they are still 8 players away from hitting the 51 number, and they're at the salary cap. So they need to cut. They need to do some certain things. There's going to be Tremaine Edmonds is almost certainly going to get cut. No one's going to trade for him at that price in an expiring contract. So they're going to cut him. They're going to have to replace him. Now, maybe Tremaine Edmonds will sit there and say, I want to stay in Chicago. I'm willing to pay TJ Edwards type money where you cut his salary for 2024. And you could do that also with bonuses in an extent, or in 2026, you cut his salary by giving him a bonus and spreading money out. And then he's willing to take a lower base at like 11 or 12 million. If that happens, maybe you're willing to keep Tremaine Edmonds and you lower the number next year to like 9 million. Then he's playing at like 11 million or something like that on the number moving forward. Maybe you can do something like that with Tremaine Edmonds if they want to keep him. He's playing really good football right now, but you can't keep him at 18 million. You look in the secondary, like you said, they need safeties. Do you give Kevin Byard an extension? Do you give Jaquan Brisker an extension? Cutting Jalen Johnson and not getting anything for him, but now he's coming off injury issues and he is starting to get a little bit older. What can you do with Jalen Johnson? That's going to be a question we're going to have to talk about in the offseason. Montez Sweat making $25 million. You don't want to cut Montez Sweat because also you've paid some of Montez Sweat's bonus already. So his base salary is like $20 million a year. That being the case, you can shop Montez Sweat to a team to get some sort of draft capital. I don't know exactly what Sweat's going to get. I'm guessing the Bears are going to want a 2 for him. Maybe they have to settle for a 3. Now, if you eat some of the salary, people might be willing to give you more draft capital, but you're at Montez Sweat at like $20 million a year. A team's going to be like, I'll pay $20 million a year for Montez Sweat. I don't want to pay 25, 26, $30 million a year, but $20 million for an edge player at that value, that's pretty good. So someone may want to trade for Montez Sweat. DJ Moore is a guy I keep bringing up. He's probably going to be that. He's got a really nice salary for an incoming team, really low for a player of his caliber. DJ Moore could fetch you something. You're also looking at Cole Kmet. I don't think Cole Kmet can be traded at this point for what he is. That might be a cut candidate. DeAndre Swift, he's playing really well, but Kyle Monangai steps up. Maybe they can draft a rookie. DeAndre Swift is a guy you can potentially cut, save $8 million. So they're going to have to do some maneuvering with the team. And like you said, they need to replace these guys, but they also need like Ozzie Trapillo to be able to play and contribute. They need Shamar Turner to go out and play and contribute. Ruben Hippolyte, if he can be a legitimate linebacker, guy's inactive, even though everyone else on the Bengals was injured that was inactive, except Ruben Hippolyte. He's literally the 53rd guy on the roster right now, but you need him to turn into something. You need to hope Za Frazier figures things out and he comes back and he's something. Luke Newman, can he be a key, reliable interior offensive lineman? These are the type of things we're looking at here, is how can the Bears improve their roster, but how can some of these internal guys that haven't done anything yet, can they step up and be key contributors? So there is a lot of ins and outs here, Brent, in terms of how this is going to work for the Bears. And that's why I said this roster is going to look a lot different. This is going to be Ben Johnson's roster. It's going to look a lot different. We're going to see a lot of these key players gone. He's going to pick the guys he likes. You got to love what he's seen from Darnell Wright, guys like that are Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus guys that he's going to want to keep on his roster moving forward. Obviously, Caleb Williams is one he circled right now. And obviously, I think guys like Darnell Wright and some of these other guys are going to stick around. Kyler Gordon, they've already committed to. So you're not going to, it's not going to be any. And usually a GM will keep about 4, 5, 6 guys. Maybe it's 8 or 9 guys that stick around from the Matt Eberflus era, but it's not going to be a lot. So you're going to see a lot of turnover, I believe, on this roster over the next couple of years. What we're seeing now is not what it's going to look like in 2027. There's going to be some changes. All right. Bruise and tattoo. Should the Bears extend Byard given what he's done since arriving here? Jay, bruise and tattoos? I'm really leaning that way. He's having a great season. I don't think he's going to be expensive given his age. Maybe he wants similar money than he's getting right now. It might be even a little couple million cheaper. Why does Kevin Byard need to try and hold out? If he likes what's happening, if he thinks this team's going in the right direction, if he thinks Dennis Allen's the guy to make him extend his career and play a couple more years at a high level, obviously he didn't like it in Philadelphia. Things didn't work there. He's playing much better in Chicago. Maybe he doesn't want to pay paid more than about $6 million a year. Bam, done. Give me Kevin Byard next year. Give him a 2-year extension with half that money, let's say 2 years, $13 million with $7 million guaranteed. And he comes back next year on a fully guaranteed deal. And then he can still come back in 2027 if he's not tailing off. So yes, I would extend Kevin Byard. Jaquan Brisker is more of the question, even if he is a better player overall and a younger player. There's the concussion issues there, and you got to make sure he gets through a season before you can consider keeping him. And he may want to try and cash in if he thinks he can go out and get 13, 14, 15 million a year on the free agent market and get a 3-4 year deal, get 30 million guaranteed. He's going to want to go out and test that. The Bears may be like, we're not paying you that. If you're willing to stick around for 10, 11 million a year on a 3-year deal and we'll guarantee 18 million of it. And Jaquan Brisker may be like, no, man, I got to go out and swing. I need my money. And you can't blame him if that's the case. And you can't blame the Bears if that's the case. So we'll have to see what happens with Brisker. But Byard right now, absolutely, I would say extend Kevin Byard, assuming you can get it done for an affordable deal, which I would expect you to be able to. Evan Lepeau, all righty, Zimmerman. The roster seems to be on the fast track of broke and bad. The Bears are replacing failed draft picks with roll-the-dice practice squad caliber players and aren't panning out. This team seems to have no depth. Please give me a positive spin and change my mind. Well, Evan, and like I said, it depends on what your expectations are. That's where we're at right now, is people trying to marry expectations with where this team actually is. Like, Evan, you're looking at some of the issues, and there are issues. Jalen's hurt. Kyler's hurt. Kyler was extended, and he's clearly injury prone. Grady Jarrett hasn't been healthy. Dio Odangbo's out for the year. Yes, we get it with the injuries. It's not ideal. Luther Burden, concussion, these type of things happen. DeAndre Swift is obviously on the shelf right now. But, Evan, here's what I want to say. I don't want to say, don't look at the trees, look at the forest. Ben Johnson's here. Dennis Allen's here. You should have confidence in both those people. Caleb Williams and Tyson Bagent are your QB1 and QB2. You should have confidence in that getting, squared away and having good quarterback play. Sorry, got text messages, got distracted. This is the situation. DJ Moore, he may or may not be here, but he can play. Roma Dunze's developing. Colston Loveland's developing. The offensive line is really good. And maybe guys like Luke Newman and, Theo Benedict, maybe he can eventually get into a reserve role, if they can beef up left tackle, or maybe they move Darnell Wright to left tackle. Trapillo starts at right tackle. Theo Benedict's your swing tackle. There are a lot of positives on this team. The defense is going to look wildly different. But you got to understand, it's going to take some time. The Bears, if your expectations are you want the Bears to win the division at 11-6 and start winning divisions every year moving forward, then yeah, you should panic because the Bears aren't in that situation. Yes, they might be able to squeak into the playoffs. It depends on how things go in December because that's when the schedule gets a lot tougher. But the bottom line here is you should feel confident in the coaching staff. You should feel confident that they have some key players at key positions, but you should not feel confident that this team is ready to contend for a Super Bowl. There are going to be a lot of different faces on this team moving forward, and they are in the middle of overturning the roster. They've already overturned like half the roster from last year to this year. I'd have to look at the numbers. I don't have them in front of me, but it's significant. So don't panic, Evan, but at the same time, keep your expectations where they should be. Positive, but reserved. Billy Kidd. Hey, Bill, Richard Hightower has got to go, right? Billy, I think he does. I think he is a guy who's going to finish out the year. I know I tweeted and I said you should fire him tomorrow. And like I said, if they had fired him, I'd be like, absolutely, that's where they need to be. But at the same time, I don't think it's a reason to panic and say the season's over because of the special teams. We haven't seen it be that bad. It seemed to be kind of a perfect storm. You heard Jade Walker. I know we all love him, not having a great season at special teams. You heard it from Patrick Mannelly. It is what it is with the special teams. They need some new guys out there. They probably need a new scheme in a lot of ways. They need a new voice, and I think they'll probably have a new voice in 2026, but not firing Richard Hightower already is fine because, I mean, it's not like there's some amazing special teams coordinator sitting out there they can just scoop up. You know, Dick Vermeil is not coming back to coach the Bears special teams. So that's where we're at right now. And let's wrap up the podcast with two things really quickly. First, Packers fans, I just want to say something. Get a life. The Green Bay Packers fans, if you didn't see this, I ended up on freezing cold takes, a lot of hooting and hollering, whatever. I sent out a tweet the day Aaron Rodgers got traded to the Jets that the Packers have the worst quarterback in the division. And then I said, that felt good to type. And yes, that was a vent from 30 years of Favre and Rodgers. And at the time, Jordan Love had started. Now, again, was there enough data to decide if Jordan Love was going to be good or not? No. But at the time, Jordan Love had one start in his career, and he was terrible. He was absolutely awful, and he had filled in a couple times for Rodgers, and he was not good then. Kirk Cousins was still dealing 30 touchdowns a game. Jared Goff was dealing 30 touchdowns a season. Jared Goff was doing the same, and Justin Fields was coming off his 2022 season where he ran for 1,100 yards, and everybody thought Justin Fields was on the right track to becoming an excellent quarterback. Different kind of quarterback, but an excellent quarterback. We know how it went in 2023. So the bottom line here is when I tweeted that, I tweeted it because it was funny because it was true. Did I know if that was going to stay the same? No, I didn't. In fact, someone said that, don't jinx it. And I said, I didn't say anything that Jordan Love was a bust. I simply said what the truth was in that moment. So the Packers fans are trying to drag me over something that was a factual statement that everyone would have agreed with in that moment because I think Jordan Love is, half of them didn't even look at the date. They thought it was something that I tweeted this year or with that day. Like, grow up. You want to have fun with the Bears-Packers rivalry? Let's do it. But let's not try and blow something out of proportion. That was that. That was a ridiculous day that happened there with the Green Bay Packers fans. Get a life, guys. Get a life. It's like trying to make fun of the Bears for drafting Mitch Trubisky. It's over. He's a backup in Buffalo. We've moved on multiple times. We don't need to keep talking about it. But enjoy your team is good. I know you just lost to the Carolina Panthers and maybe you're about to collapse and wouldn't that be a shame? But your team is good. You're in first place. You should be happy. Why are you searching for tweets I sent out 2.5 years ago about Jordan Love? Feels insecure. Go to the Mars Cheese Castle. Have a good time. We don't need you in Chicago. Please stay north of the border. Thank you very much. All right, let's wrap up with the prediction. Bears coming up this week. New York Giants. I haven't even thought about it that much with the trade deadline and everything going on, but I will say this. The Chicago Bears better win this football game. It's at home. It's against a bad football team. It's against a bad football team with some of their best players injured. There is absolutely no reason to see this Chicago Bears team struggle. It'll be curious to see how Theo Benedict can do against this defensive front. The Giants should be able to rush the passer. So the Bears offensive line, we should get a good test and see exactly where they are as a unit in terms of protecting Caleb Williams. But the bottom line here is they don't have much on the back seven. This offense, there's not much around Jackson Dart. The Bears should win this game. If they don't, they have a problem. And I don't think they do. I think this team is pretty good. I think it's going to be mostly fun the rest of the way, frustrating at times, but I think Caleb Williams should have a pretty good game. I think the Giants can't stop the run very well. I think Kyle Monangai should have a very good game. I would sit DeAndre Swift again, make sure he gets plenty of rest. And I believe the Chicago Bears offense should be pretty productive in the passing game as well. And I think they're going to score some points again. I think Giants might score a little bit on this Bears defense that we know is not great if they're not causing turnovers. But Jackson Dart is a rookie, and Dennis Allen does a good job confusing rookies. So we'll see if he does that same job against the New York Giants. So I think the Bears do force a couple of turnovers. I think they win this one fairly comfortably. I'm going to call it, let's say, 30-17. The Chicago Bears beat the New York Giants. Not quite 2 touchdowns, but close. We'll see if I'm right. It will say, take 2. We'll see if I'm right next week. Bear down, everybody. Talk to you soon. Adios.